Okay, so now we're going to do a still life lesson setup, and I'm going to show you how I construct a small scale still life. So I will do sometimes still lifes just on a table with a sheet of card behind. On this occasion, I'm going to make use of the light inside the light box, and because my subject isn't too big, I think it will work well within it. So still life photography is more of a fine art setup. It'll often involve vases, maybe books, fruit, and you're trying to create something a little bit more like a painting, for example, the old masters. You can have very contemporary black and white versions as well, and I'll talk about that later on. I've gone to my 55mm lens, and I've actually come back quite a bit from the box because I've got to get the flower and the vase and a little bit of the table that they're sitting on in the shot, and then I can start to edit it in a fine art style later. I've turned my box around because the light at the top of the box, I want to come from the side, so I've shifted it 90 degrees. So I've got light coming at and basically into this flower here. As I'm using a tripod mainly because I'm going to be over there controlling the light for some of it, so I'll need to use a timer. Right, I'm going to set up the shot. I'm going to put a grey background in, get the flowers positioned and start taking some photos. Let's go. Right, so I've got the shot set up. I've used a grey background on this occasion because later I'm going to put a texture behind the vase and the flower when I edit, just to cover a few of the imperfections that I can currently see in the shot. So now I'm going to take a few test shots and see how that works. I'm shutter speed 1/125, f8 and ISO 400. Yeah, that looks really good. So I'm really happy with the test shot and how it looks. I might do some gardening of, there's two little brown fronds coming down from the flower that I might remove later. I want to try some directional lighting, which is something that I use not just with still life, but even with just the regular flower photography in the box. Because I've turned the box on its side, I've got strong light coming from the left. So the first thing I'm going to do is balance that out using an LED light. I'm going to put it at the side of the box, which it won't be in the final shot, we'll see it at the moment, and then see if I can get a match. I have exposed for the flowers, but I just like them to pop a little bit more with a little bit of extra light. So I'm just going to adjust the level of my LED light and pop that into the box now. Yeah, that looks really nice. I've now got stronger light on the right than the left, and I'm going to balance that out using a torch coming through the hole, which was originally at the top, but it's now on the side of the light box, just to shine some extra light in from the left-hand side. To do this, I need to use a timer probably of about 10 seconds because it's me holding the torch before I take the shot. So I'm focusing, pressing the shutter, and then moving to shine the torch into the hole. I'm checking that. Yep, that looks nice. I'm just going to reduce the brightness of the LED panel on the light, and then I'll try the same shot again. Yep, I'm really happy with that. I'm just going to garden the stem to remove the brown leaves that are hanging down. And then I'm going to try the same shot again at slightly different apertures, just so I know that I've definitely got all of the vase in focus, all of the flower in focus, and all of the stem in focus. Okay, so I've trimmed the dead leaves off the stem and that's looking much better now. I also turned the vase around. There was a bit of an imperfection on the vase. I could crop it out when I'm editing, but it's probably easier to start with something that you know is going to work. Before I started the setup, I cut the stem to make a composition that I thought balanced with the vase. And this is the really tricky thing with still life photography. You have to try and get the flower and the vase in proportion. And if I had had a longer stem, it would just look really strange, sort of poking up out of quite a small vase. So spend some time before you start taking photos, really sort of balancing out the composition that you've got. I think it works, even though it's a double flower. Doubles don't often work in flower photography. We often think in groups of 3s and 5s. I think it works because it forms an inverted triangle, and that kind of compositional element is quite strong, especially in a sort of clean setup like a still life. Right, so we're all trimmed up. It's looking great. I'm going to just adjust the temperature of the LED panel on the right, which is a little bit warm at the moment, and it's a little bit imbalanced. It wouldn't matter so much if I was converting to black and white, which I might do, but I want to give myself the option of using a colour version maybe as well. So I'm just going to go and change that setting. That's better. Ah, that's much better. Right, so I'm going to take the shot again and I'm going to go and hold the torch to illuminate the flower on the left. Yeah, that's excellent. It looks really balanced. Great. I'm just going to try a couple more at a slightly narrower aperture just to make sure that I've got everything in focus. That one was f11 and 1/125 shutter speed. Yeah, I'm happy with that. Brilliant. Yeah, I'm really happy with that and I can't wait to get that edited. And once you've got this set up, then you might as well find some different vases, different flowers, and try lots of different things. I'm going to just try a much smaller version now of this tiny pottery vase with magnolia flower that I cut this morning. And it doesn't have to be always directional light from the left. I'm probably going to rotate the box now so that the light is coming down from above. I might need to do something about the reflections on the vase because they don't always work. They can be a little bit distracting, but I can get rid of those when I'm editing later. So now I'm going to turn the box around and get this little one set up. Right, I've got the new flower and vase in situ. The light's coming from above now. I've gone in a little bit closer because it's not as big a still life as the previous one. And because of that, for the same reason, I'll drop the aperture and I'll start at something like f7 probably, which should still mean that everything is in focus. I've spent some time creating a composition that I think works quite well. And again, there's a triangle shape within the composition, so hopefully that will work. And I've continued to use the grey background that I was using for the previous one, just because again, I'm going to add a texture onto it later, and I want it to be something that's not really distracting at all. It just needs to give good contrast. It's not as light perhaps as it appears in the shot, and we can darken it down later anyway. There's a little beetle on the leaf that I might have to remove with a paintbrush, but I'll see how he goes. So now all that's left is to take some pictures, and I am currently on f7.1, shutter speed 1/250. I'm exposing for the flower, and I'm still at ISO 400 as I was before. Yeah, it looks good. If in doubt, always use quite a narrow aperture for a still life that's got quite a lot of depth to it, because you really do need everything to be sharp in the picture. Right, I'm just going to do a couple more at a narrow aperture. I've gone up to f10 now, and I am on shutter speed 1/160. Lovely. Yeah, I'm really pleased with that. So that's my still life setup. And to recap, in the first shot, we had directional light coming from the side to make it quite sort of striking and contemporary. This one is a more classic one where the light's coming from above, and it's a smaller setup. So I've not used any directional lighting really. So I can't wait to get back to the studio now and edit these.